It's important to remember that how you show up as a host is also reflective of how you show up as a business owner. So I have a process. And my point in saying this is so many people have commented to me about how organized I am. And that is why they decided to hire me as their copywriter.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
What's up, podcaster? It's your host, Adam Adams. And today I am joined with Emily Aborn, who has a death wish, and that's why she has 2 podcasts. Do you really have 2?
I really do have 2. And I love both of them so much.
Okay, so I'm going to start here. The listener, let's say that they already have 1 podcast or they're about to launch their first podcast. Should they think, okay, well, Emily Aborn, she's got 2. That should be my goal?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation wherever we take it. Should you have 2, dear listener? So I'm going to tell you why I started the second one, and I think that will help to answer some of that question for you. So I started my She Built This podcast back in 2019. And my goal with it at the time was to give voice to women entrepreneurs, to let them tell their stories, to inspire other people, and to kind of like bring those messages to a bigger audience. There is also a community surrounding that podcast. So there's a lot of conversation that takes place in the community around the podcast. What I realized in doing that podcast is that me as a copywriter, as a content writer, I would try to squeeze in solo episodes that were like just me giving my expertise, but they weren't really aligned with what I was doing with the show. They didn't really feed into the mission and the vision of the show. And so I decided to start one that does work for my content and copywriting business, hence the Content with Character podcast. I use my She Built This podcast now as like this awesome networking opportunity, like just a tool to have conversations with great people, get really, really curious about stuff that I'm curious about, and bring those curiosities to the listeners. So I didn't start that Content with Character podcast like haphazardly. I did it very, very intentionally. I had no idea what I was doing when I started my first one. And my second one, I sat down and was like, okay, this is what I am doing. This is how I am doing it. And it was just so much more deliberate.
With the second one, Content with Character, is it 100% just solos or do you have guests?
Yeah, that one's 100% solos.
Okay. And you said that it was intentional. So tell us why. Are they all solos?
So one of my reasons is that when people come to me and ask me a question, I have a place like a kind of like a resource library that I'm building that I can send them that information and say, you know what, I answered that question in the show. You can go take a listen there. I do a lot of like SEO work and blogging and things like that. I'm working on that strategy in the background. So this kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm already doing because I take a lot of my content that I use in that show and I repurpose it in other ways. So for me, I'm building like a content library, if you will. I also get the opportunity to share things that I think would be really, really valuable for people who either are ideal client, know my ideal client, or maybe are like one notch below being ready to be my ideal client, but they're getting there. And then it's also, you're going to hate this, but it's also just a way I can give back to people that may never want to pay to work with somebody. They do want to do it themselves and they just want all the information and resources that they can get. I do like to provide for them as well.
So I got a couple of questions. One of your podcasts is called She Built This, and I was a guest.
Yes.
And I have a beard. So did you think I was the bearded lady?
My audience and my guest for She Built This is women entrepreneurs and the people in their lives that support them. And I know that you support women entrepreneurs through the work that you do. And I'm just super duper curious in like what you are building too. So it is not just limited to women entrepreneurs. I think we can all learn from all the people.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Next question. Do you advertise both podcasts or like on your social media, for example, or is one take priority over the other one?
I would say that I advertise both equally on my social media. Yes.
Okay.
I'll say this. I don't need to put as much into the She Built This one because it already has its loyal listeners and it doesn't seem to really fluctuate that much unless it's like a super popular guest that the episode gets passed widely around. But with my Content with Character podcast, I am still building that listenership. So yes, I advertise both on social media.
Okay. My next question is either a great idea for you that you should write down and start implementing and making more money or making more impact, or both income and impact, or you're already doing it and you don't need the idea. But I'm curious if for example, She Built This with when you're interviewing people, if you ever mention your other podcast called Content with Character, if you ever say, oh, on my other podcast, I just recorded an episode about that or something like this, vice versa. You're on Content with Character, you're doing a solo and you're like, oh, I just had this interview with this bearded lady named Adam Adams. And it was all about podcasting. And then you do your episode and you're like, if you want to go over to that other podcast, that link is already in the show notes.
I believe great minds think alike for this exact reason. Yes, I do. I love doing that. That's another great way to build both interest in both for both audiences.
Okay, so you do advertise both equally on social. You do advertise one on the other and the other on the one. I have another question. What is the future of these two podcasts? Are you going to keep them going for a long, long time? Both of them?
I have no desire whatsoever to burn either one down. I would say, as I sit here, ever. But I'm sure, all good things must come to an end. I don't know, when I'm 90 or something. But no, I love both.
I want to see you at 90 doing two podcasts. That'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. Your husband's like, you can quit now. You can quit now. We only have 2 years left. All right. So the future is, so far, we're good to go for a long, long time. No intention. But I want to ask you what you think about this. I have heard that you can't chase two rabbits or else you'll miss them both. And I've seen people try to start two businesses, not necessarily two podcasts, but two different businesses. And sometimes they just have two very weak, non-performing businesses. And if they let go of one and just put all focus in one place, then they do better. Do you see that pruning the tree, cutting off one or the other would help, or chasing just one rabbit would help with anything? Why or why not?
Oh my gosh, your question is coming at such a timely moment for me. And I hope that it's okay to share just like kind of openly and honestly. So I actually have two businesses. I have She Built This and I have my copywriting business. And I recently made the decision, like literally a week ago, that I was going to be closing down the community portion of She Built This, which realistically translates to I'm probably not going to be doing anything with that business anymore. Like I won't be doing events. I ran a lot of events and workshops and things through that, in addition to my copywriting business. And I was trying to give both 100%. And I am 100% person. Like if I tell you I'm going to do something, if I tell you I'm going to be someplace at a certain time, I will. So what I found was that I was burned out and exhausted and sacrificing like personal parts of my life and mental health, trying to make two businesses successful, equally successful, or, one where I could take the backseat on the other at the same time. And I decided that I was going to go 100% in on myself, which is actually like when you really boil that down at the end of the day, it's a very hard thing to do because it's easy for us to shine spotlights on other things and give. But when we're asked to like go 100% on ourselves, we have to believe that we are worthy of doing that. So my answer for you is I have let that piece of my business go. For me, the podcast piece of that has never been challenging. It has never been difficult. It has never been exhausting. It is so easy and fun and delightful. If it stops becoming that way, I would definitely reconsider that decision and putting all my eggs into one basket. But the other answer to your question is I cut back on my frequency of the She Built This podcast. So I'm still very, very consistent, but I don't do it as frequently. So I have like a schedule that I stick to, and it's now every other week instead of every week, which I was doing. I was doing every week and also maybe some bonuses here and there, you know? So now I'm every other week on that, and I'm every week on mine. And also, just between you and me, solo episodes are easier.
Wait, you know this is being recorded, right?
Yeah. But just between you and me and everybody, solo episodes are a lot easier than having guests. There's a lot less time involved. You know, I can just
Wait, you're saying solos are easier?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we have to argue slightly only because like solos, you can do them whenever you want, but because Adam Adams can do it whenever he wants, I'm a procrastinator. And so they can stress me out because I'm like, you just put it off. I put it off for a long, long time. So they are kind of easier. They do kind of take faster. Like solo for me takes 10 to 30 minutes. And an interview is almost always going to take an hour. So it takes a little less time. But I feel like the interviews are easier because the burden of the content today, Emily, and it's a good thing you have a podcast called Content with Character. You know all about content and copywriting. The burden of today's content is on you. I don't have to give anything. I'm laid back, chill. I can just show up and ask you questions and you'll put all the value to my listener. But when I have to show up on my podcast, it's a little harder. So you're saying the other way, right?
I think
keep going there. I cut you off. I want you to keep going.
I mean, I am a preparer, so I will actually prepare quite a bit for my guests. Just like I like to know a little bit about them and be able to like really know my topic a little to ask the questions, like the ones I'm curious about. And then it's like the scheduling piece and the sending them the assets piece, you know, like there's just other pieces that go into having a guest. That's all.
I'm hearing you. The assets, the getting the guest, the preparation, making sure to ask the questions, you know, knowing ahead. I'm understanding that. I don't do that as much. I like to wing it, but I think
you're so good at that. No, but I mean, that's your style. And even with your solo episodes, I feel like you can just sit down and like go, where in my solo episodes, you know, I have like a little outline, like my little links.
I love it. I love it. Well, you know, I think both ways work. And it really fits the personality of the person who's doing it and a personality of the person who listens as well. So it's good to hear that. So you're saying you're letting go of She Built This community just so you can really focus on that one thing, prune the tree, if you will. Even though you love that part, even though it's been a big thing, you've done a lot of events, you're narrowing the focus. But I want to share with you, and I hope this impacts the listener as well, that with your interview podcast, She Built This, honestly, Emily, I think that's a wonderful way for you to connect with like your perfect person that you can help. You help people with copywriting, right? That's your company.
Yes.
So like if you're connecting with entrepreneurs and adding value to them through the interviews on that podcast, She Built This, then there is some type of reciprocity. That's one part where, hey, I just got value because you featured me. And it's how do I give back? Well, I'm going to hire a copywriter anyway. I enjoyed our conversation. Why don't I just give Emily the business? Why don't I just hire Emily? She's great. She added value to me already. And now if I hire her, she'll know that. She'll know that she added that value. So I guess what I'm saying is where you are and with the frequency that you do it, and you might even be able to bump it up, but with where you are and the frequency that you do it, it seems like it's actually smart for your business. And I'm curious if you've seen any clients through She Built This podcast that have been on your show and that hired you for something. Has that happened?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it has happened. I never even knew about that whole having the right guest in the seat that could be a client of yours. Like that never even crossed my mind until it started happening. And actually, I want to share because I think this is important for the listener. It's important to remember that how you show up as a host is also reflective of how you show up as a business owner. So for me, and I know that this is the case for Adam too, so I feel comfortable saying this, I have a really good process for like getting my guest ready for the show. Like I send them everything they need, like a long list. I used to even have it recorded as an audio version so they could like listen instead of read. But now I'm just like, that's too time consuming. So it's a list of everything that they need. And I send them all the follow-up stuff. And I am even like, I send thank you cards and I write them a LinkedIn recommendation. So like I have steps I take with my guests and it's the same every single time the guest is great.
Okay.
If it was really bad, I wouldn't write a LinkedIn review that said it was an amazing interview. So I have a process. And my point in saying this, so many people have commented to me about how organized I am, how reliable I am, how responsive I am. And that is why they decided to hire me as their copywriter or why they decided to hire me as their content writer. Because they're like, I knew I could trust you to organize what was going on in here. So
yeah.
Thank you for saying that. And I just think it's an important reminder for all of us, like how we show up as hosts is also how we show up as business owners.
Love it. So real quick, I'm looking at content with character because in my onboarding process that you mentioned, I have a place for you to put your short bio, got a place for you to put your podcast. And for you, you gave me this podcast. Nobody can put like all of their podcasts if they have more than one. So this is the one that comes up and I'm impressed by something, like really impressed. And I wanted to just acknowledge you for it and also get your thoughts on how did it happen, because I think it could help the listener as well. What I'm impressed with is you have 20 ratings and 15 episodes. And I was interviewing somebody else, only my team will know who, and he or she had more than 100 episodes and 3 ratings. I was just on another call for a podcast interview, and they only had 3 ratings and reviews, but they had over 100 episodes. They've been doing that podcast much, much longer, and they haven't been getting the results or something of the results of you, where even with a fraction of the work. So I'm curious, how did you get 20 ratings with that few of episodes? Are you just amazing? Do you ask for them? What are you doing to have that happen? Because I think it really can support the listener.
You asked such great questions that I think you're right will so support people when they're getting started. So I created a dream team and it was like 10, 15 people that I wanted to be a part of celebrating the podcast launch with me. Now, in my last podcast, I didn't have a launch. I just was like, here's an episode. I just started a podcast. So this time I pulled together 10, 15 people that I really knew, like, and trusted. And I know they know, like, and trust me. And I said, I am releasing my first episode on this date. And then I'm releasing the first official episode on my birthday because I have a thing with numbers. So I released the episode and I asked them, within this time span, could you listen? I don't want you to write a review without listening, but could you listen? Could you write a review? And then could you also make a post for me on your own social media? So first of all, that dream team did amazing. And then the amount of sharing from their posts was like outstanding. And this was all on my birthday. So I was like, this is the best day ever. Since then, and I plan to do this again, I did a listener review contest. So I said, if you've already written one, you're entered, but I'm also going to enter everybody who reviews from now until August 1st in to win XYZ prize. My next prize, I think, is going to be like a free strategy session with me. So it's just like a little bit higher of incentive because now I'm sort of in the spot where everybody has heard me continuously ask for reviews and I'm still missing a good, probably like 2/3 of the listeners, right?
Yeah.
So that's my next plan is to say, or whoever does it this round, you're going to get entered to win a free strategy session.
That's cool. So what does a strategy session look like for you and your business though?
So we would sit down and really people come to me with a variety of content struggles. Some people just can't get out of their own way. Some people have really great long form pieces of content like you and I are creating right now. and they're like, I want to make this go. I want it to do other things. I want it to be blogs. I want it to be social. I don't want to be thinking about 20 pieces of content. I just want to think about one per week that I have to create. And we really map that out for them. So it's a variety of things. Some people need like website audits because their website has just no words at all. So it's a variety, but it's really
Wait, how would you audit it if it has 0 words though?
No, that
you're like, this copy is incredible or this copy sucks. I'm not sure what you would say.
I shouldn't say 0 words. The words are very sparse. So I kind of help them like say, here's the things that should be on a website. And you need to give Google a little something to work because there's not.
What do you mean by give Google something to work with? You're saying that the website is not just for the person who clicks on your link, but it's for Google in some way?
I think that only you as a business owner can decide which of those 2 things you would like to focus on. But Google doesn't pick up anything like a page that is less than 300 words. I like to make money while I sleep. So personally, I want Google to be my friend. I want to be up in the rankings when people are looking for website copywriter for women entrepreneurs, et cetera, et cetera. That's how I like to feed an extra set of leads into my business, but that's not for everybody. Some people simply want beautiful, fluffy website copy that doesn't attract newcomers. It just attracts people that are already there.
Okay. So if you're listening and you like to make money while you sleep, or you haven't tried it yet, but you think you might like making money while you sleep, Google doesn't look at anything less than 300 words, a direct quote from the Emily Aborn. Google doesn't look at anything less than 300 words. I'm curious, Emily, how many words do you think you have? Or maybe you've like done a word count. How many are on your website?
On my whole website, I don't know.
Okay.
Thousands,
but do you make sure like every tab has, or every tab or page has like 300 or more? Or what does that look like for you as a copywriter who really knows what they're doing?
Yeah, every page that I want to rank for. So some of your pages you don't want to rank for or you don't care. Like your contact page, you can focus on it. I've seen people do it. I've helped people do it. But you don't typically focus on your contact page. Every page you want to rank for, it's an art and a science. So like, it's not just beneficial to just put words on your site for the sake of there being words on your site. It's kind of an experience when you go to a website. Like us as website viewers, we know how to flow through a page. We know where buttons tend to be. We know what is going to happen next. And so it's kind of like giving all of those little sections a job to do, basically. So 750, 1,000, like, I mean, don't go like 3,000 words on one page, but you could do 3,000 words in a blog if you're feeling super loquacious and if your reader really, really likes words.
So I've got some good notes here. You focus on 750 to 1,000-ish, usually, give or take, and you could do more if it was a blog. Now I've got a question, and it's a great question because it's coming from a person who is naive. And I don't know what all this means. And I'm assuming that I've got at least one listener who is as naive as I am. What is a word? A word on a website? Is there such thing as hidden words, like that it's white words, white background, so you can't even see it? Are these tags? Are these meta somethings? I've heard of that word meta. I don't know what it means, I'll be honest, but these words, what kind of words are they and where do they put them? Is it in the foreground or the background or both?
That's a great question. When you first said that, I was like, are you talking about a, if, or? Like, I'm not sure if those are words. I think they are. So a lot of people will put words as images. Like if you go to a site and you're like, that's beautiful script, it could be script font. So it could actually be like a heading set in the website, or it could be a picture. And if it is a picture, any words on your images, quote cards, like even podcast art, your logo, that doesn't count as words.
Okay, a word on an image.
Yeah.
It's not going to be picked up by that system. Like what words will?
Yeah. And I'm not 100% sure about alt text or meta descriptions.
Okay.
So what I would, I guess, without
So
no
what should we focus on?
Yeah. So I would focus on the actual copy that you're, there's a lot of best practice. I mean, SEO is like a very big strategy, obviously. So there's a lot of best practices and like little things you can get into, but I would start building out the structure first with the actual copy on your page.
Can I get like a 5-ish minute free strategy session while the listener's listening?
Sure.
Okay. If you're on YouTube or something, then you might be able to see my screen. But for everybody listening, you're not missing out on much. I promise you, you're not missing out on much. So I'm going to be having Emily go through a portion. I'm going to pick a portion, some place on my website, and have her look at it. And I'm going to, on the spot, we're going to see if she has anything to correct. How about we look at this all-inclusive package data right here? I'm going to Control Plus it so it goes a little bit bigger so it's easy for you to read. Why don't you read it and just tell me any change? Read it out loud and tell me any idea that you would have that comes from a copyright perspective, anything that can help the listener, A, help the listener, and B, show the listener kind of like what you do, and so they can understand, oh, should I have her look at my website too?
Okay. This is intense.
Are you okay being put on the spot like this?
I am. I think it's fun. So, okay. How you go to market with your podcast is the catalyst to its success. When you're launching a new show or rebranding an existing show, this all-inclusive package will give you the support you need. Our famous tagline is the easy button for podcasters. Your podcast will be streamed because Grow Your Show takes care of everything. We help identify and understand your ideal listener so you can serve them with your podcast. We'll help you find the best equipment to record high-quality audio and video, support you with finding the right subscriptions, create your branding, logos, and artwork for you, all your voice over work, music, and we'll even handle getting your show listed on the top podcast platforms. We offer 3 levels of support: basic, standard, and premium, that solve these challenges for you so you can be the star of your show without all the hassle. When you read below, you'll also see that the standard and premium options include paid marketing too. Okay.
All right.
Really?
My first opinion, I'm just curious if you agree with this. It's a little wordy. No?
It's a little wordy, and there's just some simple little things you could do to make it easier. So one thing I like to challenge myself in is when I'm looking at any message, can I explain this to my 5-year-old nephew, Max? If Max asked me a question about this, would I be able to explain it to him? This doesn't mean, oops, what happened?
I'm putting it in a new place.
Oh, okay.
In case I need to change anything and get some free advice, and you don't even know it.
This doesn't mean we need to, talk to our audience like they're 5, but we want to make it clear. So some people don't know what the word catalyst means. I'm a big fan of that word personally, but I would move your tagline. Our famous tagline is the easy button for podcasters up to the top.
Boom.
Like that.
I love that.
That's so good.
That's a great idea. All right. It's going to be moved. I'll send you the payment later. Okay?
And I might, yes. You can make checks payable to Emily Aborn. How you go to market. This is where I get tripped up. So how you go to market with your podcast is the catalyst to its success. It's a confusing sentence and I don't entirely know what it means. And my brain stops me. So I would 100%
either feel you.
Simplify it or get rid of it. You could get rid of it. You don't need it. But maybe just simplify it. And then I really love the rest. You might bullet out these bottom parts, like we help identify, we help you find, because if you bullet it, kind of gives our eyes like a little bit of a rest.
What would be bulleted? Just the 3 words, we help identify?
So
or
maybe
the entire sentence?
Yeah. So maybe you do this. Maybe we help, :
Okay. We help.
And then you do identify and understand your ideal listener. Then you go through those bullet points there. Okay. I love bullet points as just a way to like give my eyeballs and your readers' eyes a break.
The bullet points, is that where you're saying, support you with finding the right subscriptions, creating your branding, logos, artwork, voiceover work, music, all those could just be bullet points.
Yes, exactly.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, there you go.
Brilliant.
But then I love the rest.
You know what? I
The only
love
other
this. And I
sentence-
think I will probably work with you to go over the rest because this is like one simple paragraph. Granted, it's the first paragraph. It's very important, but you got some really great changes already.
The only other sentence, you don't need it because you said when you read below, you'll also see that the standard and premium options include paid marketing, but we're going to read that below. So I don't know. That's up to you, but
Yeah, good point.
it's a little redundant.
Because it was already wordy. And so we could shorten it. Loving it. Loving it. So I'm gonna make these changes. I love it. Artwork, voiceover, music. Muchos gracias. I got back from Mexico yesterday night.
Fun.
I'm used to speaking Spanish. Not that I'm fluent, but
I heard in one of your episodes that your goal was not to be able to, with the French, someone recently who spoke French, you said your goal was not to be able to know if a movie was in Spanish or English after you finished watching it.
Awesome. Thank you for being a listener, Emily. Emily, how do we think of copywriting? Like, I want to get a little bit more into your podcast stuff. I know that the listener needs copywriting because every human needs copywriting. And I feel like I'm pretty good with copywriting. Like, I can help other people. I can see what they're doing and I can tweak it to make it a little bit better. Is terrible doing it for yourself, but you write it and let me help you tweak it. I like that. I really enjoy that. You've supported me in a lot of ways just with this. What do we need to be thinking if we're a business owner, we've got a podcast, or about to launch a podcast about like the importance of copyright?
A lot of people that I talk to say that either writing is super, super hard, right? Like copywriting is so, so hard, or they think that nobody is reading it. And I do think that people are moving very, very fast in today's day and age, but I do think that people are reading it. And I think that's why it's so important to distill down what we're saying and make sure we're conveying it in really, really clear ways. And we're also giving people, like, there are so many different types of buyers out there. So it's really about like thinking about like where they're starting when they're coming to you and what information they need at different points in the decision. So that's something to think about, like, no matter what you're doing, whether it's social media or your website or your email, it's thinking about who is the person on the other side and what do they need, or what am I wanting to share with them in this piece. And I think that's a piece a lot of us miss. You know, we think everybody is ready to buy and we can always sell, or maybe everybody just wants education. But I think it's important to just remember that like buyers are at different places in their journey, and they're also at different places in their awareness level. So someone might know that they have a problem, but they might not know you're the solution to the problem. Someone might know 100% that they want a copywriter to solve their problem, or they need a podcast production company to solve their problem. So they already know the solution and the problem. It's also like thinking about that, like where are they in their actual awareness of the problems that they have?
So you're using this quote that I just got, think about where they are when they are coming to you. You're thinking about this in order to support them to be on the same page with you and to be able to make that decision to make that purchase if it's right for them. And I think that also goes in with podcasting as well.
So much.
Because, and you already said this goes with your business, it goes with a lot of other things. You got to think about where they are when they're coming to you. I had a client, her first name is Kathy, and Kathy's very famous. She's been on ABC, NBC, CBN, Fox, and all these other places. She's had a podcast since podcasts started. She's been interviewed on the greatest of podcasts. She's spoke on some of the biggest stages in her industry. And I've been to those conferences. That's how I met her. And we became friends because we were in a mastermind together. And she had so much fame. And then all these other new podcasts were starting. And so in her industry, which is real estate, all these new real estate podcasts would start. And the difference, I'm hoping this resonates with the listener. I really do. The difference here is this is a brand spanking new podcaster that is really probably just learning some of this stuff right now. And they're bringing the listener along with them on the journey. And so they ask fantastic questions because They're still curious about those questions. Kathy, on the other hand, she's spoken on all of the conferences. She's been part of many boards. She's been part of this industry for a long, long time. And she's had, I think, probably thousands of episodes. I don't think that's an exaggeration on her podcast. And she even had a radio show. And Kathy started getting bored. She was getting bored because she knew the stuff. She could teach the stuff. And there came a day where Kathy, in my opinion, she forgot who she was talking to. So she was having like 120,000 downloads per episode. A lot of us want 120,000 downloads per year. She was having about 120,000 downloads each episode. And it slowed down as she stopped thinking about where they are when they came with her. She was thinking that everybody came along with her for thousands of episodes and they already knew all the stuff that she learned 10 years ago. And what happened is she got down to, I believe it was like 30-ish thousand downloads per episode, something like 25 or 35,000. And I start listening to the podcast when she hires us to do the marketing. We do paid ads. And she's like, I don't know why people are taking my listeners. Those aren't her direct quote, but she's like, I don't know where all these listeners are going because we used to be fine. And now we're a quarter of where we used to be. And I listened and I'm like, Kathy, here's the thing that you're doing. You're talking completely over everybody's head. You're talking like somebody listened to every episode so far and that you're bored of all of this stuff. And I made an example of this guy. His name's Matt Terrio, another friend of ours in a different mastermind group that I was part of. And he always talked to the person as if this was the first episode they ever been to. And his listenership was growing and hers was declining. So she made that one change. She made the change of, I'm going to talk to the listener like they're new, like they're just coming to me. And then the only other change is we started advertising. She went back up to 120,000 incredibly fast. These results aren't normal for our stuff. She was already famous. So she just had to get in front of those people again. And then they subscribed and it was their stuff. Now, how this relates, I think, to us when we're doing a podcast is I'm learning from Emily today about copyright. And I'm going to go and do an episode, in 3 episodes from now. And I could, if I wanted to, I could pretend like everybody already learned that we have to use at least 300 words, like Emily said. I could pretend like everybody already knew that Emily uses 750 to 1,000 words as a copywriter. But that's just not always the case. Emily, you said we don't talk to them like they're in kindergarten or something, 5-year-olds. Well, we do have to speak to our listener as if it's the first episode that they've ever come. And we've got to be thinking, where are they when they're jumping on this? When they see my title of my podcast, Content with Character, the podcast on podcasting, she built this. What are they thinking? What do they need? And we can support them with that. And I love how you put that into your content as well, your copy of a website, of your business, and your podcast each and every time, because you're going to maintain your listeners like Kathy was for a short time.
You said it fantastic on the interview we just had on my show, which may or may not be out at the time that this comes out. But you said every time you sit down to do an episode, you envision that one person that is listening to you, that like you have your client avatar in your mind. You know who that person is, what their life is like. And I really think that is the key to copy, podcasting, content. I always say content is a bridge. It's connecting me. Like I want people to like my personality on the side of the content bridge, but I also need to know who the person on the other side is. And then we connect through content, through what we're sharing, because we're speaking right to them. And I can't even tell you, when you do that, I've had so many people reach out to me and be like, oh my God, it felt like you were talking right to me. It felt like we were having a conversation. Like that's the kind of email I want in my inbox. And I imagine a lot of the listeners feel the same way.
Beautiful. I really do like that. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I'm going to find out, Emily, what you would say to our perfect listener. Speaking of our perfect listener, somebody who's been doing this less than 2 years or about to launch it. They're in that new stage. What would be your absolute best advice? We'll be right back. Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, growyourshow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show. We're back with Emily Aborn, the copyright queen. Usually, Kate, does somebody already have that? The copyright queen? I like that.
I'll write that down.
If you make a lot of money off it, could you send me like $5?
Definitely. It'll be the swap for the strategy we just did.
Perfect. All right. So she's the host, as you recall. She built this. I was a guest, obviously. And she's the host of the second one is Content with Character. She's a copywriter. And some of the things that she has given us today is that she used a dream team when she launched her second one. When she launched her first one, she didn't really know what she was doing. She didn't know what to do, but she kind of grabbed a group of people and launched, I think, back in May during her birthday. And she had, I think she said, 10 to 20 people that supported her, and they did 3 things. So write these down. If you're listening, what did she do to get great results? She had them listen. She asked them to review again after they listen. And she said to post it on their social. And in doing that, she was able to get results that most podcasters don't get even in their first full year. She got in the first month. She also was talking about how your copy on copywriting can be good for the person who goes to your website automatically that you send them. And it can be good for Google to help you to make money while you sleep. So if you recall, she said the minimum amount of words that is going to ever get picked up is 300. And so what does she do as a copywriter? She makes sure that, there's more than double. There's 750, maybe 1,000 words. I asked her a question about hidden words, like words that you can't really see, tags and meta somethings. And she used another word, which I can't recall. These words, she said, if they're on images, they're not going to work. But it's really going to be the main words that are on there that people can read. And she even went through my website to correct on some of them, to simplify it, to get rid of confusing things so that it was more concise. And she really helped me right on the call. And the big quote that I believe is really going to support you the most from this call so far is that when you're doing copy, when you're doing your podcast, when you're doing your business, you think about your avatar, you think about where they are when they are coming to you. I think of my avatar on my podcast as well as Corey Peterson way back when I first launched my show. Not Corey Peterson now that he's worked with me for 4 years, but Corey Peterson when I met him. He's my avatar, and everything that I do, including right now when I'm speaking to you, I'm imagining that I'm talking to Corey. And I'm thinking about where he was when he came to me for the first time, as if he was listening to this episode. We mentioned that Kathy with 120,000 episodes down to 40,000, and how it went back as soon as she tweaked that one thing that Emily is really good at, that you might need to look at and see if you could do a little bit better. Emily, before the break, I said you had the best advice ever. What do you think?
Yeah. This is not the best. This is not the best advice ever. Don't be fooled. So I think it's twofold, but it's one thing. So first of all, I would say that you get clear on the vision of your show, like the mission, the why you're doing it in the first place. And then once you're clear on that, you advocate for your show and your listeners every episode you do. And what I mean by this is if you have a guest on your show, or when you are bringing guests onto your show, make sure that you're advocating for the listeners of your show. You're advocating for the mission of your show. You're not just like haphazardly saying yes to anyone and everyone. And then one other kind of like piece is that podcasting can be a part of your content creation so that it can make your content creation easier, not harder, right? Like it can be such a big pillar in all the content that you're creating all over the place, they can work in tandem. So my advice is just to think about your podcast as a way to repurpose content one way or the other. Either you repurpose it to your content or to your podcast, or you repurpose it from your podcast. But it can really, really simplify your content strategy if you use your podcast to your advantage in that way.
Perfect. I don't know how to spell tandem, so this sucks. You should have said something else. So number one, get clear on the vision. Number two, advocate for your listener on every show. When you're talking to your guests, when you're letting your guests know what's up, give them your vision, your mission, who is your listener, so that they can give good piece of advice. Number three was podcasts can be part of the content creation and work in tandem. So she ended with repurposing content. You can do something over here on a blog or on a social or whatever, and move it also to the podcast, or you can do it on the podcast and go there. And another way that Emily has done it, I think, is she might be on one of her podcasts and just letting people know about the other show as well. So maybe taking a snippet out and doing a solo when she goes over to Content with Character, or asking questions to an expert on something she started to do on her own. And this can build and grow. Emily, how to find you is already in the show notes. So any of your social you wanted to share is down. The link to both of your podcasts should be there as well. So if you haven't already, Emily, make sure my team has both podcast episodes, since I only had the one. And your website, your company's website, is already in the show notes. So if somebody wants to work with you, maybe do a strategy session with you on their podcast or on their website, then they can find you that way. Really, really appreciate your time. I felt like today was a fun episode and a lot of good content as well. And I hope people can find you on those other two podcasts as well.
Yeah, this was so great. Thank you for having me. And let's have another chat down the road. This was fun.
Awesome. So, hey, if you're listening, you know that every other episode is a solo episode. And I've got a few solo episodes recently that I was really excited about. I got what would you say, like when you're just poured into knowledge, and I was in the zone. I got a few episodes, and one of those episodes is the very next episode. So don't go anywhere. It's a short one. I'll see you there. You know, I really don't say this nearly enough. I don't mention this, and I feel horrible because it's a great resource for you to be able to take your podcast to the next level. And it's simply a free resource that I don't need your email or anything. It's just a podcasting course that I created that is ended up putting in the very first 6 episodes of this podcast. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely going to want to just check out those first 6 episodes, see how they can help you improve your podcast, get in front of more people, and have a better result where you're making more money through the podcast, etc. So much can happen after you listen through episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if you haven't done it, go do it now. And by the way, if you're subscribed, you'll keep hearing more great content. So to those of you who are, I'll see you on the next episode.